So far on GP's library, I have introduced you to books I read in the past. I don't think, talked about any book that I just finished. So today will be the first episode where I talk about a book that I actually just finished last night. Yeah, last night. So in this video, I will give you the title of the book, when I read it, how I read it, so audiobook, ebook, whatever, and then a few takeaways from that book, and then who I think this book's for. So let's get started. So last week I actually got in the book What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. I'm sorry if I said that name wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the correct pronunciation. And I got it in on Saturday from Abe Books. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's not a sponsor or anything like that, but Abe Books is where I go to get a lot of discount cheap books. This one took a very long time. Usually it's a 4 or 5 day turnaround. For some reason, Abe Books had like a damn near 2.5 week turnaround on this. About 2 week turnaround on this, but regardless, I was so happy when I got it in. I got it Saturday evening, and I was finished by Monday evening. Obviously, I read the physical copy. It's only about 170 some odd pages, so not too hard of a read. And for somebody like me, it's exactly what I want to read about. He's a writer and runner, and done both at a very, very high level, considering I think in the book he said, at the time of writing this, 24 marathons, so I'm guessing now upwards of like mid-30 marathons, and obviously written many, many books. And so I'll get into a few of my main takeaways. And as I just said, a big takeaway of mine is his connection with writing and running. I feel personally that when I write something, I feel more motivated after a run, or even if I know I'm about to go run. I don't know, that running just opens my mind and allows me to think, especially because now that I'm running longer distances, I'll be gone usually like an hour and a half each day that I go running. And that's a lot of time to be by yourself out in the street, maybe a little dehydrated, maybe a little bit hungry, but having your mind wide open and seeing all the different also inputs from around Chicago. So I will say that is a huge takeaway for me, because I felt it before. I have always been a huge fan of going for a run, even going for a walk before I write, but reading from a professional standpoint who does this, and that's what fuels his writing. It actually fuels me to run even more so I can write even more. So Murakami travels all around the world. He goes obviously on like speaking tours. He teaches at different universities and does talks and all that type of stuff, but he is originally from Japan. And so my next takeaway is the universality of runners' experiences. He's an older man from Japan. I'm a young black man from America, and we have very, very similar experiences while running. The sudden pains, the days you might not want to go, the figuring out and trying different things, all the training to run a horrible race, or run, not horrible, but a suboptimal race, and then doing it again. The financial impact that running can have on you. I'm sure he doesn't feel that anymore, but the mental and physical impact that running has on you, it is so universal, whether you're in Russia, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, US, South America. That is what's so cool about running, is you could meet somebody who doesn't even really speak your language, but y'all speak the language of running. So just reading about somebody else who's a runner in a different country, in a different world, started at a different time period than me, but has very similar qualms, or very similar stories, very similar anecdotes about running. It's just interesting to read. As you'll hear me say on this channel a lot, I love reading books about people who are completely different than me, about people who live completely different lifestyles from me, whether that be race, whether that be sexual orientation, whether that be sex, gender, whether that be any of that stuff. I love reading about people who are pretty much the complete opposite of me. But every now and then I get a book about somebody who I feel like is I don't like saying like kindred spirits, or somebody that's like me, because I have nothing to the success level of Murakami. I haven't run a single marathon. I haven't published a single book. So I am not sitting here, please don't think I'm sitting here comparing myself to him, but if in terms of who I'd like to kind of craft what I do around, or at least use as an influence, or at least feel seen by reading his stuff. That is a big takeaway that I get from this book, is that if you read enough books, if you keep looking at books, looking for books of things that you're interested in, you can feel seen. If you don't feel seen, if you don't feel heard in the world around you, you need to go to a library or a bookstore. Because there's somebody else who's dealt with what you're dealing with, and there's somebody who's written it down. And if there really isn't, you really actually probably have a duty to do that. And if it's not coming from a place of arrogance and you genuinely feel that no one has ever told your story and no one has ever experienced what you've experienced, then you truly need to get to writing or get to telling some story. But when I read books like this, I realize that there are other people like me on this earth. There are other people who like to go through this suffering. There's other people who like isolation in certain times. There's certain people who like certain types of focus. There's certain people who like certain types of indulgences. And Murakami, as I read it, I was like, is he talking about me? Is he talking about himself? Or was he there when I did that? Like shit like that, somebody else that lives a similar life to you, whether they're across the world, whether they're your age, whether they're from history, or whether I guess they couldn't be from future, but wherever they're from. If you keep reading books, if you keep opening your mind up to new stories, there's somebody out there that can relate to you and that you can learn from and that you can feel not so alone. So finally, who's it for? Obviously, it's for runners. It's called What I Talk About When I Talk About Running, a memoir. So it's a memoir about running and his experiences about to run a New York Marathon, but also he gets into triathlon. He gets into other races. So if you're interested in running, if you're an aspiring runner, a current runner, a long-term runner, you just started, this is just great content for you to be reading, because somebody also understands you. Not only that, you can kind of, even as a young runner, see what you may face as you get older. I have very serious knee issues and leg issues of past that I'm trying to work on. So I probably have the body of like a 50-year-old runner, even though I'm only in my 20s. But with that being said, I can see forward, at least in the mental aspect, at least in how little time I may have in the future. Because right now I am someone who has a shit ton of time. So as I get less time, how I'll deal with that in my running and my fitness and all that. I think it's a great book for runners. It's a great book for writers. Although most writers probably don't live this life. He even talked about how there aren't that many marathon running, especially novelists. And so with that being said, it might not directly apply, but obviously if you kind of want to peel back the layer and see what modern day genius writer or very, very famous writer does day to day, it's a great opportunity to do that. If you just want to see what somebody else does, obviously you might not take from it. Something else might be your thing, but somebody who also went from being a business owner to a creative, who dropped a pretty successful business, he talks about that in the book, who closed a pretty successful business to become a writer because that's what the hell he wanted to do. That's inspiring. I mean, that's the type of person that I am as well. And if that's the type of person you want to read about, maybe you're trying to take that leap, whatever, also great for you as well. And people who just want to get past mental barriers. Running is a sport that's all about mental barriers. Probably not as much as cycling, because cycling is actually only pure suffering. Running is not to that extent, in my opinion, but when it comes to running and it comes to mentally getting yourself through hard times, he's able to very well articulate how he mentally and physically gets through these hard points, whether it be through races or training. So guys, what I talk about when I talk about running, Haruki Murakami, definitely a quality read. Like I said, I finished it in 48 hours, a little bit less. So it's a book that's worth picking up, worth reading. It's been GP with another episode. Go pick up a book. I'll see you guys next time.